What kind of mother sells her own daughter like a bag of grain? The question hit Maybel Shaw again and again as the rough hemp rope dug into her wrists. She stood on the porch of Red Hollow's trading post while the dry wind stung her face. Her boots were cracked. Her lips were bleeding. Her heart felt like it had been stepped on so many times it no longer knew how to beat right. Behind her, her mother barked orders like she was running a cattle auction, not trading away her own child. Stand up straight. Stop breathing so loud. Try not to look like such a burden. People watched. Red Hollow always watched the fat girl, the useless one, the barren one. Whispers slid through the crowd like snakes in the dust. She heard them all, but she kept her chin high. Across the yard stood Elias Crowe. Tall, silent, dressed in black oilskin and dust, a scar cut across his cheek. His boots were planted firm in the dirt, like nothing could push him over. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He didn't care at all, it seemed. Ruth Shaw pointed at 3 barrels stacked by the porch. 3 barrels and a mule. That's the deal. Maybel's voice was low and sharp. You're selling me for gunpowder. Her mother didn't blink. You think you're worth more? 3 barrels and a mule is more than your belly is worth, girl. People laughed. One man spat. Another muttered that her backside alone could crush a cabin roof. But Maybel didn't cry. Not in front of them. She swallowed the hurt like she had swallowed every wound her whole life. Then Elias finally moved. He stepped forward and cut the rope from her wrists with one swipe of his hunting knife. His gray eyes met hers. She expected disgust or pity. She found nothing. Just emptiness. Smoke without fire. You walk, he said. I don't carry burdens I didn't make. Her mother gave a short, cruel laugh. You'll learn fast, Mr. Crowe. She eats too much, moves too slow, cooks badly, and doesn't breed at all. Elias said nothing. He simply turned and walked away like he had not just traded for a human soul. Maybel picked up her small bundle and followed him. They walked until Red Hollow vanished behind rocky hills. The climb up Apache Ridge was steep and lonely. The wind groaned through the pines. Ravens circled overhead. Neither of them spoke. Her legs shook. Her breath burned. Pain stabbed her back with every step, but she refused to fall. He wouldn't carry her. She knew it in her bones. So she walked. By dusk, the cabin appeared. A small shape, tucked against the mountain. Smoke curled from the chimney. A thin boy with sandy hair stood on the porch. His eyes were wary but curious. That's Wyatt, Elias said. He works. Don't talk much. Inside, the cabin was small and cold. A cot, 1 bed, a table, a hearth half-heartedly burning. Tools piled in a corner. It smelled like a place where someone lived, only because he had nowhere else to go. Elias pointed at the cot. You sleep there. You cook, clean, feed the goats. Don't touch my room. Don't touch my gear. Don't speak unless needed. She dropped her bundle and turned toward him. What do I get? He looked at her like she had asked for gold. A roof. Then he walked into his room and slammed the door. Maybel stood alone in the dim cabin with her burning wrists and shaking hands. A roof. That was her worth now. That was her life. That night she lay awake listening to the wind claw at the windows. She whispered to herself, voice soft but fierce, I am not your shame. I am not your debt. In the other room, Elias sat on the edge of his bed, holding a cracked photograph of a woman with long braids and a small baby in her arms. His breath shook. Pain crossed his eyes before he tucked the photo away. Wyatt watched from the attic stairs, his hand pressed against the wall like he could feel the hurt in the air. Down in Red Hollow, Ruth Shaw raised a glass of cheap whiskey and smirked at the thought of her daughter getting eaten alive by mountain life. She'll be back crawling, she said, but Maybel was done crawling. 3 days passed. The mountain was cold and cruel, but she worked harder than she ever had. She chopped wood until her arms trembled. She cleaned the entire cabin. She cooked stew with shaking hands. Wyatt left small kindnesses for her. A peeled apple. An extra blanket. Though he said nothing, she felt he was watching over her in ways Elias didn't. Elias barely spoke. He left before dawn, came back after dark, ate in silence, walked past her like she was smoke. The silence felt heavy, like it held a story she was not allowed to know. But the third night, a storm rolled in. Black clouds spilled over the ridge. Rain slammed against the cabin like fists. The fire sputtered low. Shadows twisted across the walls. Maybel stood barefoot on the cold floor. Her dress was damp. Her body shook, but it wasn't the storm making her tremble. It was loneliness, hunger, fear, all layered into something sharp and aching. She went to the pantry to look for dry wood. Instead, she found a cedar box carved with mountain lilies. It didn't belong there. Something told her not to touch it, but she lifted the lid anyway. Inside lay a woman's bone comb, a baby's bonnet, a broken locket, a photo of a woman, fierce as fire, holding a newborn. Footsteps crashed behind her. "What are you doing?" Elias stood in the doorway, soaked, wild-eyed. He grabbed the box like it was a wounded child. His voice shook. "This ain't for you. It was just a picture," she said. "You don't touch her. You don't speak about her. I'm not trying to take her place." "I didn't ask for you," he snapped. "I needed a cook, not a mouth that digs where it shouldn't." She felt something inside her break loose. "I didn't ask for you either. I got sold like livestock. You look at me and see everything I'm not. But I am not your ghost." His jaw clenched. His eyes were storm clouds. She pushed past him, fire burning in her chest. Later, as the fire died low, she heard footsteps. She looked up to see a mug of hot tea placed on the table. Elias walked away without a word. She stared at the tea for a long time. The mountain was cold. But something had shifted. Something had cracked open. Something was waking. What if the world was wrong about her all along? The question echoed in Maybel's mind 4 days after the storm, when she woke before dawn with a tight twist in her belly. She pressed a hand to her middle and breathed slow. It wasn't fear. It wasn't hunger. It was something deeper, something ancient, something she didn't dare name yet. Outside, the mountain was quiet. Too quiet. Elias had left early again, disappearing into the woods with traps and silence. Wyatt swept the porch, stopping every few seconds to watch her like he was guarding something precious. She didn't mind. His quiet presence felt safer than any wall. By noon, sickness clawed up her throat without warning. She barely made it outside before she vomited behind the goat shed. Wyatt froze. His eyes widened. Then he bolted toward the woods, running like lightning without sound. She knelt in the dirt, breathing hard. Her heart pounded. Something inside her felt different, alive, like the start of a flame. Wyatt returned an hour later with Old Mother Elk, the mountain healer. The old woman's eyes were cloudy but sharp. She touched Maybel's cheek, then her wrist, then her belly. A hum filled the air, soft and sure. "This child," the old woman whispered, "was sent to shame liars." Maybel blinked. "Child?" Elias appeared in the doorway, breathless, frozen in place. The old woman looked up at him. "They said she was barren. They lied." Life grows strong in her. Maybel stared at the healer, tears filling her eyes. A child? Her? The fat girl called worthless her whole life? Her throat tightened with hope and fear mingled together. Elias, jaw tightened. Not anger. Something else. Pain. Memory. His wife had died giving birth. The wound had never healed. "We need to be sure," he said carefully. "We are sure," Mother Elk answered. "She is carrying your blood, Mountain Man." Maybel looked at Elias. He didn't speak, he didn't smile, but something behind his eyes cracked open like ice breaking under spring sun. The next day he saddled 2 horses. "We'll ride to Fort Mercy," he said. "You'll get checked by the doctor." She nodded, but inside her heart raced. She wasn't afraid of the trail. She was afraid of hope. The ride down the ridge was long, rough. Every bump sent a sharp ache through her back, but she held on. She had walked to this cabin with nothing. Now she rode toward town with everything. At Fort Mercy, the doctor, a young woman named Drive, Harlow, examined her gently. She listened, she pressed, she smiled slow. Healthy pregnancy, strong heartbeat, due by winter. Maybel covered her mouth as tears spilled. She tried to speak but couldn't. Dr. Harlow squeezed her hand. "Nothing wrong with you, Mrs. Crowe. Nothing ever was." Outside, Elias leaned against a post, staring at the ground. When she told him, he didn't smile at first. He just let out a long breath like he'd been holding it for years. Then, something passed over his face. Something soft. Something real. On the ride back, he stayed close, one hand hovering near her waist in case she slipped. She didn't, but she liked that he cared. In Red Hollow, whispers rose fast. "The Barren girl is with child? Impossible. Someone else must be the father. She must have tricked him." Maybel ignored every one of them until she saw her mother standing in front of the dry goods store. Ruth Shaw stared at her belly, lips tight, eyes burning with jealousy. And loud enough for everyone to hear, she spat. "She must have lied. No way that body carries life." Maybel stepped closer, held up the paper from Dr. Harlow. "Healthy pregnancy, due by winter." The crowd stared. Maybel smiled. "Looks like the fat one can carry more than shame." Ruth's face twisted, but Maybel walked away before the woman could spit another poison word. From the saloon steps, Gus Muldoon watched with calculating eyes. He chewed a toothpick, muttered to himself, "That baby's worth more than gold dust." In the shadows beside him, Ruth replied, "You get me half, and I'll make sure she never sees it coming." Danger had begun to move. But Maybel didn't know yet. She only knew joy. Back at the cabin, she stitched a quilt with stars on it. Wyatt helped gather berries. Elias fixed the latch that squeaked. It almost felt like a family. A strange one, but hers. Late one night, she stood by the stove stirring stew when Elias spoke behind her. "You don't breathe like a ghost." She turned. His eyes were softer than she'd ever seen. She smiled. "I ain't trying to replace anyone. I'm just trying to live." He stepped closer, close enough she could feel his warmth. "You're doing more than living." He didn't touch her, but he didn't walk away. Days passed. Her belly grew, her strength grew. So did the danger. Wyatt found a flyer posted in the general store. "Wanted. Newborn. High reward. No questions asked." Maybel stared at it, hands shaking. Someone knew. Someone was planning. That night, she locked the cabin tight and told Elias, "They think this child is worth more than us." Elias, face hardened, "Let them come. They'll learn." Wyatt watched the tree line every day after that. Found footprints. A dead rabbit hung from a fence, a warning. He scratched a message onto leather and gave it to her. "Bad men coming." Her heart turned to stone, but her voice stayed steady. "We'll fight." Elias nodded. "We won't run." But the threat grew closer. Shadows moved near the woods. Hoof prints circled the ridge. Then one night, a stranger rode up claiming Elias' brother was hurt. Maybel saw right through it. "Don't go," she warned. But he kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll come back." He left moments before her water broke. Pain ripped her in half. Wyatt tried to help, but the door burst open. Two men stormed in. She screamed. They held her down. Her baby slipped into the world in blood and terror, and they stole him. Elias returned too late. He found her barely alive, whispering through the darkness. "They took him. Elias. They took our boy." Elias' heart broke, then hardened. War began. He hunted them through the cliffs and fires of Clearwater Bluff, shot Gus, crushed the wagon, saved the child. At dawn, he carried the baby home and placed him in Maybel's arms. She fell to her knees, crying soundlessly, holding the tiny boy she had feared she'd never see again. "Hawk," she whispered. "His name is Hawk." Elias knelt beside her. "He's yours." "And I'm yours." Winter came. Snow thickened. The cabin warmed. They grew into a family built on fire, storms, and survival. But peace never lasts long in the Wild West. And shadows from the east were already coming for them. What happens when a mother who's been broken her whole life finally learns she can fight? The answer came with the snow. Winter crept over the ridge in thick white sheets, but inside the Crow cabin warmth lived in every corner. Hawk was 5 months old now, strong and curious. He grabbed anything in reach. Maybel's hair, Elias's beard, Wyatt's sketches. Every time he wrapped his tiny fist around something, he smiled like he'd discovered gold. Maybel stitched him a new bonnet while rocking him. Elias split logs outside. Wyatt carved little wooden birds. For the first time in her life, Maybel felt safe. She felt wanted, but Elias did not. He paced, checked the rifle, checked the windows, checked the door. His shoulders stayed tight. His jaw stayed locked. "You're restless," Maybel said gently. "I'm cautious," he replied. She shook her head. "You're scared someone will take what you love." He didn't deny it. He didn't have to. "Then teach me to fight," she said. Elias hesitated. Maybel looked him straight in the eyes. "I survived worse, and I ain't losing Hawk without a fight." He finally nodded. They trained in the snow, breath turning into white smoke. Elias showed her how to hold a rifle steady, how to stand, how to breathe before she aimed. She missed the first few shots. By the 5th shot, she hit the can clean off the fence post. Elias whistled. "You just might be meaner than me." "I always was," she said. That night, she rocked Hawk while Elias leaned in the doorway, whiskey in hand. "You ever think it's too quiet?" he asked. "No," she answered. "I think it's finally right." But she was wrong. Far across the state line, a woman in a long traveling coat stepped off a train. Her hat brim hid her eyes. She carried no luggage. She spoke only one sentence at the telegraph office. "Target located. Proceed." Her voice was smooth as cold water. Back on the ridge, Maybel found fresh tracks near the tree line. Deep, wide. 2 pairs. Recent. Elias checked them. "Professionals," he muttered. "Not thugs. Not drunk cowhands. Trained." "What do they want?" Maybel asked. "Not the child," Elias said. "They want the story. A clean one they can control." Maybel held Hawk closer. "Then let's burn their story to the ground." That night, a note appeared on their doorstep. No tracks around it, no footprints. Just a folded paper held down by a stone. "One more storm is coming. You took what wasn't yours. Now we take it back." Maybel looked at Elias. Her voice was steady. "Let them try." The next morning, Elias hid ammo, set traps, walked the perimeter. Wyatt kept watch with a slingshot and knife. Maybel stayed close, hand near her pistol, Hawk strapped tight against her chest. By dusk, the world went quiet again. No birds, no wind, no movement. Elias stepped outside into the blue dark. He saw them. 3 figures in long coats moving through the fog. No horses, no sound, no hesitation. He bolted to the door. "They're here." Inside, Maybel wrapped Hawk to her chest. His tiny heartbeat slammed against hers. She kissed his forehead once, slow. "Wyatt," she whispered. "If I fall, you run with him. Don't look back." Wyatt nodded and grabbed the baby. The first gunshot shattered the window. Elias fired back, ducking behind the well. Glass fell like rain. The door rattled. Boots cracked against the porch. The leader, a tall woman with eyes like polished stone, kicked the door in and stepped inside like she owned the place. Calm, cold. Maybel stood in the kitchen doorway, pistol raised. "That baby's mine," the woman said. Maybel shook her head. "He was never yours. And you will not take him." The woman stepped closer. "It was never about him. It was about you. You're messy. You're loud. You survived what should have killed you. So now we clean it up." Maybel cocked her pistol. "I ain't a mess. I'm a mother." She fired. The woman dove aside, grazing Maybel's arm. A knife flashed in the woman's hand. Maybel blocked her strike, twisted her wrist, slammed her knee into the woman's stomach. They crashed onto the table. Dishes shattered. Elias grappled another attacker near the fire. Wyatt slipped out the back with Hawk. Snow swallowed him. Maybel punched, clawed, fought with everything she'd buried her whole life. Every insult, every bruise, every time she'd been told she was nothing. She felt her strength rise like a storm. The woman lunged again. Maybel stepped aside and drove her elbow hard into the back of the woman's skull. The woman fell, knife slipping from her hand. Maybel had never killed anyone before. She didn't need to now. But the woman didn't get up. Silence filled the cabin. Elias limped toward her, bleeding from his side. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, breath shaking. They sat beside each other on the floor while the fire crackled and smoke drifted through broken windows. Wyatt returned hours later, Hawk sleeping against his chest. When Maybel opened the door and saw them, she didn't speak. She just held her baby and cried into his soft hair. 3 days later, they buried the bodies on the north slope. No names, no markers, no mercy. Spring came slow but sure. Flowers rose, snow melted, life warmed again. Maybel planted marigolds along the porch. Wyatt built a simple swing from pine. Elias fixed the roof and carved toys for Hawk. The world had tried to break her again and again. But she survived. One afternoon, Elias found her rocking on the porch with Hawk asleep on her chest. He sat beside her. "I never believed in redemption," he said. She brushed Hawk's cheek. "Do you now?" He looked at her, eyes soft. "I believe in you," Maybel smiled. "The warm kind, the kind that makes a home out of a place that used to be cold." "I used to think being unwanted made me weak," she said. "But it made me sharp. It made me fierce. And now—" She looked down at her son, at her family, at her life. "Now I take back what the world tried to steal." Hawk began to stir. His tiny hand reached up, grabbing the fabric of her dress. She kissed his fingers and whispered, "This story is ours now, and we survived every damn chapter."